All right, g'day, hi and welcome. Okay, so anywho, about that, let's say it right, about. I was talking in the lot early or about the mid '90s. I started to notice women getting really hostile. So, like the women that were my age, like my exact age or plus or minus a year or two, I didn't notice that much of a difference in their attitudes, but I'm sure there was some. Like women have always had, complain about, why do all guys do that? That's always been a thing. That's not new. But guys have always said, why do all women do this, right? But it was never hostile. Like it was just kind of like a slight annoyance kind of of a tone. It wasn't a hostile, snouty tone. But in the 90s, I remember I was out with a bunch of friends, males, females, whatever. Again, Gen X were the most socialized people in human history. Like, fight me on this one. I can guarantee you, being a Gen Xer, I can guarantee you there was no generation that was more social than Gen X in the 90s. Like, 80s, 90s, Gen Xers, even probably in the 70s. Like, the boomers, yeah, they had friends and whatever, and probably lots of groups of friends, whatever. They were pretty social. But Gen X, it was just because, urban was starting to get bigger and stuff like that. So you just had more kids hanging out with each other. And then when those kids turned into young adults, there were just so many places to meet. Mostly it was clubs and bars and stuff like that. But Gen X, okay, everybody goes on with the boomers with like Woodstock, right? Okay, the boomers had some good big, things like Woodstock and stuff like that. There was a few big festivals that they had, but in general, in comparison to the average concert goer of Gen X, I mean, when I saw Skid Row and Pantera and Killer Dwarfs together, great show by the way. Okay. They're like, oh, well, we can't fill the Civic Center, so we'll put 15,000 people in this place. You know what I mean? And that was your typical concert. There was all, Lollapalooza. There was all these, concerts everywhere. In the States, the same thing, even more, because it got nicer weather down there most of the year. The Gen Xers, we were just, social, right? So it's the mid-'90s. I'm noticing women that are slightly younger have a little bit more of an attitude. And I can't quite put my finger on what it is. So I'm driving along with my buddy one day. Back then I was a biker. Technically I'm always a biker, but my motorcycles are always broken. like my trucks. My buddy's like, hey, we got to go do something. We got to grab my wife's little Suzuki Samurai and... he used to drive this little Suzuki Samurai, his wife's Suzuki Samurai. That thing, you hit a cigarette butt, you had to grab the old shit rail all the time. But anyway, we're listening to the radio, and Shania Twain's "Any Man of Mine" thing comes on, and I'm like, oh yeah, she's pretty hot. What do you think of her in those hot pants, right? Kind of thing. He goes, dude. Well, he goes, I know she's hot and all that, but he goes, I don't really like her that much. So, oh really? He goes, yeah, well, she's too male bashing. That's the first time I ever heard the term male bashing. What the hell is that? And then I started listening to the lyrics, and I'm like, yeah, she's kind of a bit of a bitch, isn't she? Any man of mine, just sitting there scolding you, it's like you're not good enough for me. I'm like, what the fuck is that? And then from there on, I kind of caught on what I was witnessing with the younger women. It was like the you go girl stuff, the girl boss stuff. It was just starting, but it was subtle, right? So it was just like, well, that guy's not good enough for me. That kind of thing. But it wasn't that snarky. It was subtle. So it's just like, well, when I get married, that man's going to have to do that. He's going to have to do that. Not, we're going to do this. We're going to, we. It started going, me. You're going to do this for me. You're going to do that for me. And stuff like that. And it was just like, the more it went on, most women were, I'd say up to 2005, were still fairly normal. But in 2005, you start to really notice it. You're now at where I will coin the beginnings of third wave feminism. The goth girl, blue-haired girl, thing is not new. It's never been new. The what we used to call them as punk chicks or goth chicks, right? And those were the girls that were kind of really fucked up. You know what I mean? With daddy issues and all that stuff. And in the 90s, for example, I remember like they were saying like the hookers in the 90s, like everybody visualized the hooker like Julia Roberts, right, in Pretty Woman, and it's to a degree you could probably, if you drove by the red light districts of your community, you would probably see girls that look pretty, they were. You could some of them you wouldn't know. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, yeah, she's pretty hoochie girl, scantily clad, but she could just be one of these girls clubbing. You know what I mean? She was still clean. She still had nice hair. She had all her teeth. Whatever. You could see that, right? And then by the early 2000s, you start to see the rise of the crack whore, right? So the Julia Roberts style hooker was gone. Like that was gone. Now it was girls, bare feet, dirty feet, no teeth, twitching on crack or something like that. And you'd say, okay, that's not good. Not that the other way was good too. But you started also seeing on the news, like, oh well, sex work is real work, blah blah blah, stuff like that. I was like, why would they promote that? Oh, we're going to make it illegal for men to use prostitution things, which is fine. I'm okay with that. But we're not going to make it illegal because it harms the women. So we're not going to make it illegal for a woman to be a prostitute, but we're going to... And I'm like, that doesn't make sense at all. It's like, okay, it's a criminal act, but we're only going to go after one side. I said, no, if you want to get rid of it, you got to kind of go after both sides of it, right? You got to arrest the crack whores and the Johns, right? But it was weird. I'm like, where would that come from? Like, who would think that would be a rational thing? Because if anything, it's going to harm women even more, right? Like, promoting that lifestyle would be harming women even more. And you say, okay, well, it's not the Sex and the City thing, because the Sex and the City thing was promoted as glamorous, right? And I remember watching one girl said, oh, men should watch that show, they'd learn a thing or two. So I watched a couple episodes just to see, okay, what it was about. And I was just like, it wasn't really funny because it's, it wasn't guy funny, you know what I mean? But I watched a couple of episodes of it, and I'm like, these women would be, in real life, like, okay, take away the humor and the plot and all that, and say, okay, well, apply that to it. If women were like that in real life, I'm like, geez, they'd be miserable. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like extraordinarily wealthy girl bosses just going around sleeping with all these men. And then I'm like, yeah, but do they not realize the fucking entanglements they would get in if they did this? And fast forward, little did I know how right I would be on this. I'm like, because I talked to my female friends, that and Ally McBeal. And they're like, Reg, what do you think of Ally McBeal? I'm like, that woman would be so fucking annoying. They're like, oh, so she's so sweet. It's too neurotic. Like, I mean, like, why would it, like, I mean, like, everything would be like, oh my God, what's going on? I'm like, I couldn't be with somebody that neurotic. Like, that's fucking retarded. You know what I mean? Like, it's out there. It's gone. Like, I mean, a woman that neurotic would be insufferable, It's like, okay, there's the guy. Like, I get it. They got to do it for the show or whatever. Okay, just they're taking it hyperbolically. And okay, she likes this guy, but she's not sure if she likes this guy. Blah blah blah. And she's all neurotic about this and neurotic about. I'm just like, no way, And of course, my female friends are like, you're sitting there, well, I don't like you anymore. It's like, we like that show. I got outvoted on that one. It's like, no, we like that show. I like it stupid. Whatever. But they still talk to me after. But the Sex and the City one, they're like, what do you think of that one? And I'm like, well, I said, I get it. It's a show and it's not meant to be, it's fantasy, right? It's not whatever. Like I said, if a woman actually did that in real life, like no guy would want her. You know what I mean? No matter how, like the only way she could get men is if they didn't know who she was. Because, from experience, I'll gotta make, I guess, 6, 5, 6.